Okay, we're doing a seminar now tonight on technology and looking at two aspects of that. One is the computer scam industry and hopefully alerting you to any of the potential problems of getting caught out by people trying to take your money through the credit card or through your bank account. And the second one will be just looking at artificial intelligence in general, but looking at technology and how that's changed over the last couple of 100 years. And it's probably not going to worry most people here because they're not working, but the key thing is it's raised the issue of whether a lot of people have to retrain through their working lives because so many industries will either contract or disappear, but new industries will grow. Now, that's obviously not good for people in contracting industries, but it does mean in general terms that it'll be a benefit for the consumer because the consumer will get cheaper, better products, more services, more options. But initially it's going to obviously, any structural change or change in employment is obviously not going to be good for people who will lose their jobs or have to retrain. So we're going to talk about that and the benefits and the growth industries and where that's sort of going. So the first one we'll look at computer scams and people who want to take your money. And it's a big industry, and obviously most people get calls from India or somewhere saying they've got your computer's got a problem and we'll help you fix it. And I had a client who a few years ago she was just happened to have some problems with her computer, and somebody rang up and said they were from Telstra, and they said, "Oh, you've got some computer problems, we'll help you with it." And so I guess what had happened, she couldn't really understand what happened, but they must have got into the computer itself and then got into the bank account, and they got $20,000 out of her bank account, and she couldn't really say how they got into it, but obviously she's given access to the computer somehow, and that's one example of her. And then I heard of another one. We'll come across another example, which I'll show you an example of it in here. But yeah, basically, it's a big industry. There's an estimate of $340 million lost last year. And the key thing here is that the number of people getting scammed is going down, but the big issue is that the amount is going up. So when they do get you, they're obviously getting more money from people. So that's not a good thing, but obviously anyone who's retired or at home is going to be more susceptible for this, because if you're at work you're not going to be answering phone calls generally from people on your mobile. So people now in the retiree age group are going to be more at risk generally because they've got more money, and secondly they're at home and they're going to be more susceptible to this sort of thing. So we're just going to really go through some of the scams that are around, and so just that you're alert to them, and most people are fairly alert now. It's just that you can then quantify what type of attempt it's going to be on your situation. But the name phishing is the word here, that the scammers are phishing to get money from you or get access to the computer so they get money from you. And the key things are your bank account, your passwords and your credit cards. They're the three things they want to get from you. And they're generally pretending to be from an institution, say a bank or Telstra, internet service provider, and you have no record of them because they're either on the phone or they're coming through on the internet. So the main one that's coming through is phones. About half of them are phone calls, another about a third from email. So they're the two big areas, and then the internet's a little bit, and text messages another quarter. So obviously they're the main areas that's coming through. They want to confirm your personal details, basically saying that they've lost their details on the system, we just have to re-put you into the system again. Well, it's unlikely any big business will do that, because all the big businesses are going to have backup systems and hardware systems that even if their main systems crash, they'll still have hardware in another area, backup areas. So yeah, they're going to be just saying they're from a bank or a major institution and try and get you to give you their passwords. email addresses, not email addresses, your bank details or your credit card details. So, the range of these is going to be quite a range of different things, but they're obviously going to be using something where they use the heading of the institution. They can quite easily pull this material onto their fake websites, create a fake website, and then sort of get you to direct you to bring it back, get your material and put it back into that website, which obviously they can then get your information. So this is called malware, malicious ware, malicious to you, and it's obviously going to be harmful to your computer or to your finances. So the main thing is obviously not to give any of these sort of details over the phone or over the internet, unless it's a reputable source. But if you're going to be asking for it, they're going to be potentially a risk. One area that's the big area is attachments. I've got here tonight our computer guide. I don't really know why the attachments allow them to access in. Is it particularly, Graham, is it because it unlocks something in your computer, or?
If anything these days, it's not so much the attachments, but there'll be a link that takes you to an external site. So if we filter the emails, that passes through because it looks unsuspicious.
Yep.
But they're tricky enough to take you to a website, which does have the...
So I'm sorry, we couldn't hear the answer.
So basically the answer is that the link, when you click on the link inside the website, that goes back to another website where they're able to troll your information. So it's not the original email is not going to trigger you to go to another website. It's only when you're getting into that link that's triggering you to get into another website. So that's the crucial thing in the scammers, getting you into their website. So yeah, malware is the issue. It's going to get into your computer, and it's going to have either 3 different major impacts. It's either going to get a virus to destroy the whole lot, so it crashes, and then they'll probably ask you to pay some money, quite a large amount of money, to have it all restored. Apparently sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. It's up to them. They've got your details, and obviously you're really beholden to them, but I don't think, I think what the Graham is that mainly you've really got to go back to your computer, to your own computer person and see what they can do first, I guess.
Yeah, they'll at least be able to assess it for you.
So whether it's completely crashed or they can retrieve something or whatever. So that's obviously a serious one. Spyware gets into your system, so that's obviously, you may not know it's even getting into computer, and they're taking down information about picking up keystrokes. So if you're putting in a credit card detail, they may pick up your credit card details, your bank account details, if you're putting in bank account details, inside your own computer. So you might not even know it's getting that information. And then there's a Trojan horse, which is malicious software that take control of your computer remotely. So you probably had instances where you had your own computer person need to fix up something in a computer, and you give them access. And they'll have a little screen comes up saying they're taking over the computer, and you can see the cursor moving around. Well, they're doing the same thing, but it's obviously been doing it without your knowledge. So they're the 3 main forms of malware, and that's the main thing, is that some emails are coming in to trick you into farming out your information. So the main issue is it's a fake website that you end up on, and that it looks like the real one. So it might be a Woolworths, it might be a Telstra one, it might be whatever. And if you look at it, it's obviously they've just stolen the whole website, or the front of it, I guess. And they can obviously see what you're doing if they've got into, if there's a Trojan there, and then they're going to get and try and get your details. I guess that, like I was telling you with the lady who lost $20,000, it's going to be the coincidental situations where you come across where you have a problem and they just happen to ring or happen to email and say, we're from the organisation you're having a problem with. And that's where you probably get the sense, put into a false sense of security, because you think, oh, I've had a problem, then they've obviously somehow contacted me. And this is an example in the Sydney Morning Herald, where she gave her password, date of birth, credit card details, and email, because an email from somebody was saying from MyGov, saying that you've got problems and we're here to help you. So I gave an email from MyGov asking me to verify identity. I thought there might be just something wrong with the documents I provided recently. So she'd been down to Centrelink, and then they just happened to coincidentally, as a scammer, come back and say, you needed more information. So it's a bit unlucky, probably just incidental, but she was directed to a fake website, which is on the MyGov, looked identical to the real one, and she put in all the details. And she went back to look at the URL, the website address, and it wasn't MyGov. So that's when she started to realise it wasn't the real thing. So that's probably the first thing you really need to know, is that your website details will give that away. And they're very hard to detect because you can't really say, look at the website and see any difference. It's because it's just completely been pulled off the real website. This one here's the Australia Post scam, which says you got something at Australia Post. Well, often you get things that you don't realise that you can, things are coming in the mail. Think, oh, I've got something in the mail that somebody might send me a Christmas present, somebody might send me a birthday present, or something in the mail. So you click on it, and then they're getting into your system. So I had a friend of mine who's a solicitor, and he had one of his staff clicked on that website, the Australia Post website, thinking something in the mail. Being a business, you'd expect things, and he had to part with $10,000 to either get it released or, I don't know. I think it was a thing where they took over the website, and there was they collapsed the website, and he had to get all his information back. So it was a $10,000 experience. This is one I got the other day, and it follows on the Australia Post example, saying you've got something in Australia Post on the 18th of February. Please know that your delivery stopped due to wrong address. Click on this site. Where was it? Something about clicking on that. I think it's on this directory there. And then I thought, with the knowledge my friend had a problem with Australia Post, I thought, well, anything with Australia Post on it's going to be maybe a problem. So then I looked up at the website. So this is the email address. Sarah Johns at AWASco, and that's not Australia Post. Looks like it's from Canada. So yeah, you can say, well, that's not going to be it, so you delete that one and forget about it. So the other one is voicemail scams, where they've effectively got recorded voicemails to say that they're from the tax office and you owe the money. Please pay, call us back on this number and you can pay your bills straight away. Very efficient. But of course, no big institution will ask you to pay like that. Your credit cards, your tax bills, bills from major institutions either go through the mail or through an email, but they're not going to come and ring you to get that sorted out. So this is another recently sophisticated text message. Here's on your text on your phones now, so be aware on your text now, not just in the email. So this has come from what says is Westpac, but in fact they're able to override the normal phone number in your email. So it looks like it's from Westpac because it says so, but in fact they've overridden their phone number, so you can't verify who it's from. They're saying it's from Westpac, they're giving you an email address, and they've given you an email address a link to go back into, so you think, oh, something's happened with Westpac. Now, only a quarter of the population has got a Westpac account, so 3/4 of people say, well, that's not right, but because I don't have a Westpac account, but the people who've got Westpac accounts are going to say, oh, gee, something's wrong with my Westpac account, I better click on this. So it could be, you've got to be aware of it. It's not just emails now, it's not just people on the phone, it's actually on your text message. So often there's a fake phone number when they refer you to call back, and there's obviously a fake person who's impersonating the institution. So you ring back and obviously you think they're legitimate, but the best way to check that is go into the old yellow pages or the white pages and see what the Commonwealth Bank number is. So a bit of old technology outfoxing new technology. So the basic story is never put your personal details, credit card details or online account numbers over the phone or on the internet or even on the emails. That's the other one they're coming out. Do not click on the links. That's the key thing. And even if it's coincidental that they've emailed you about some problem, it may not. There's obviously millions of these things are going out there every day. They're going to get a few people who incidentally got a problem with Telstra or incidentally got a problem with MyGov or their local bank, and they've just happened to email you on the day. Verification of the person is one way, and this is, you have to get an independent source like a phone book, or even go on the email, onto the internet and then just check the real website. And of course your antivirusware, most people got that, but it's obviously can never get rid of all these viruses. Apparently, Graham tells me about 7% of all these malwares are coming through because they can't filter out all of them. So you're getting only a small fraction of these malware attempts, but they're still getting through, and there's no way you could ever stop it because they're legitimate enough for the malware not to pick them up. Lotteries, you pretty much realise that most people, if you haven't taken a ticket in a lottery, you're not going to get a prize. So for most people, I think, pretty aware of that one. And the other thing they do with lotteries is they say, well, you've got a prize, but you have to pay a fee to release the prize. So then you're paying initially and then getting a fee taken out of your bank account or whatever, and obviously there's no prize in there. So obviously that's not a story that you would normally expect. No lotteries are going to require you to pay a fee to get your prize. Rebate scams, to get a reimbursement on overpaid taxes or bank fees. That's obviously, you'd know if you're getting any refunds from the tax office or bank fees. Banks don't give refunds, so you can pretty much rule that one out. But they're going to say that you're going to get something by giving your bank details over the phone, so obviously that's not a good one to do. Medicare, you could say that's another one. Now that's another one you probably would think about it. Maybe most people have medical things happening all the time, so you probably could get conned a bit on that one. But obviously, again, you're not giving you any personal information over the phone or the internet or even text. So you would be going back to Medicare to check that one. The tax office rebate one just looks like a tax office. See, from ATO taxation.gov. It's obviously not a. It looks like the ATO. Got lots of the sort of the layout from the ATO, saying you've got a refund. So there we go. So again, if you've got to pay administration fee to access this money, well, it's a fake. So just check the identity of the people who are saying this. And the major institutions are not going to ever use these mediums to get to you anyway. So you've really got to say, well, go back to the major institutions first and check them out. This one's probably not most people wouldn't be getting involved with this, but it's people saying you've got some great returns, in a alpaca farm or something like that. Well, you know that's not going to happen. So that's just going to be something that you'd be wary of. So if it's suspicious, just either hang up or don't reply to the email, delete the emails, and obviously never put your personal details back. Key one that obviously is your passwords, and this is one option of using a system to have a password system where you can put your passwords in and then have one master password. I've got a system as well, which is just to put them onto a USB and have them on an Excel spreadsheet, but this is another way of getting around it. Does anyone use these sort of master keys at all in there? You'll just write them down on a piece of paper and don't have them. Don't put them in the computer. Well, that's probably the easiest way. It's not going to, nobody can read your piece of paper. So, but this is just if you've got 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 passwords, they are hard to keep a track on. And in fact, there was a computer guy in Canberra many years ago, and he developed a system like this. I'm not sure if it's his, but he developed a master key system for the FBI in the US. So it was pretty impressive. He made a lot of money out of that. So that's one option. But what about your funds with us? So the key thing is, obviously we know you from the point of view that you're going to be ringing our office to get funds out. The second thing is we're going to be asking you for a signature on a withdrawal form. And the third thing is that we never change your bank accounts unless we've got an original signature. So we've got a number of checks in the system. So we've got your driver's licence, as you know, and we keep that up to date. So we know what your signature looks like, and obviously we've got other correspondence when you open the account, close the accounts or whatever, correspondence of your signature, so we can cross-check that. We only send your redemption forms on the emails to your email address, so we've got that, and North's got that as well. North and Summit have got your email addresses as well. If it's a larger redemption, we don't automatically pay it out. We always ring the client or send a text to say, is this you taking this money out? Now, some people have had problems in the past that they didn't think it was, or they didn't get the email, or they just didn't respond to the email, didn't respond to the phone, so we've delayed the payment. So yes, if it's, we don't have a figure for it, I think it's over 30, 40,000. If it's over that amount, we'll contact you by email or phone to confirm that you are taking the money out. Now, you still can only go back in your bank account, so even if someone does try and get money out of your account, it'll only go to the bank account. It's more a problem when we've got a call centre in Melbourne. If you go through the call centre in Melbourne, they don't have as much in the way they don't know you, don't have the checks in the balance and the system, so they may have a problem, but where they've released funds, but we always, well, we know you, and obviously we've had contact with you over time. So yes, as I said, the bank account's got to be changed by original signatures, can't be by emails or faxes. So that gives you an idea that your funds, are pretty safe with us, and we've obviously got computer people down in Melbourne who make sure there's very good firewalls on our systems. They can't get into your accounts, can't take money out. So it's a fairly safe system, and it's worked all through these years where we haven't had any problems. But it's always better to obviously go through our office for all our redemptions rather than going through our call centre in Melbourne. So I'll just have a few questions now, because it's probably, well, you got some thoughts there? Yeah, Richard? Yeah.
The question I want to ask is about internet banking.
Yep.
How can we make sure that if we're doing internet banking through our computer at home, that we are not leaving ourselves open for people to be able to get through into our bank account through our computer? I mean, for example, I know with a lot of websites where you do have a password, you can, the computer can, or the system can ask you, do you want to record this for this particular computer? So that, in other words, when you then automatically, if you save that website, automatically click on that the next time, you don't have to re-enter your password.
Yeah, it's
Now-
saved already.
Yeah, well, that's right, because it's already saved in the computer. Now, I wouldn't do that for internet banking, but it still worries me about attempting to do internet banking through the computer over the internet, about what are the risks of doing it that way.
Yeah. Graham, would like
Probably a good answer to that. Sorry. A good answer to that question is that there's a safeguard. So even if you gave the password to an attacker, so if someone calls up over the phone and you've given them the password, you've given them your account details, when they go to add a new account to get the money out, you'll notice you get a text message on your mobile saying, this is the 6 digits you need to put in. Without that, they can't add another account to get the money out. Does that make sense?
Yep, it does.
Yeah, so that's the good point. Just avoid saving that password.
Yep.
Because I mean, the flip side of that is that if you've already got an account saved with a BPay biller like Telstra, look, they may be able to pay their BPay bill with your account. So it's not going to add a new identity to get it out, but they could funnel some money out and pay their own bills.
If I could ask a follow-up question, I'm very wary of clicking on links, even through websites I recognise. I mean, a good example, you take the Woolworths rewards scheme. Every week you get emails from Woolworths telling you you can increase your rewards points. Click on this alert. Now, I just absolutely refuse to do that because I mean, I'm assuming that I'm getting a legitimate email from Woolworths, but I wouldn't have a clue whether I am or not.
Yeah, there's a good couple of little ways we can test. In fact, we might do a couple of examples soon about how you can sort of pick. So there was an example there with the PayPal thing and how you could pick the difference between a legitimate and an illegitimate site. There's a couple of little things you can look for that are pretty good indicators, like 95% plus indicators.
Right.
But I guess it'll ultimately come down to if you're needing to submit something. So registering for that additional incentive or buy 2 for 1 or something deal, the risk is very low in the sense that even if it's an illegitimate thing, as long as you're not providing anything greater value beyond that, so no more credit card details, no more bank details.
But what I'm concerned about is by clicking on such an alert.
Yes.
Am I giving, say, a scammer potentially access into my computer?
No, not directly, but what you are doing indirectly is validating that that's a genuine email address. So at the moment, lots of spammers send out millions and millions of emails and they have no idea if they're going to be successful or not. If you click on that link, they go, yes, we've got one. And then we're going to hit them with spam every day.
Okay.
So that is a sort of indirect risk associated with clicking on links in emails. Yeah.
So that's the...
Yeah, probably quite a small, I'll just jump over here.
Yeah.
It's quite small, so you've got to sort of excuse it. But see how we're getting this green padlock? Make a good point of reading the word, so make sure it actually represents the institution. Like you could have a green padlock and this say St George Bank, but actually be PayPal, illegitimate. But if even the absence of the padlock is indicative that it's not a secure connection and you're not interfacing with PayPal. So it may look the same, but you're not actually interfacing with the right person.
Is that just on PayPal or is that on
any and all websites? So anytime you do your banking, and almost to circle back to the first question you asked about how do you know if you're sort of banking with the correct entity, is make a point of actually typing the address. So don't bookmark the address, actually type www.stgeorge.com.au and also double check the spelling as you type it. Lots of people will register St George with no G, and because everyone misses the G, I miss the G, and it'll be a fake website there waiting to sort of pick you up. So just pay attention to that.
Good points. Thanks for that.
No worries.
Any others? Anyone want to volunteer some of the things that happen to them on their computers? No?
I was just going to suggest that basically if you keep your operating system up to date, you've got antivirus, anti-malware on there, and one of the things I do is when I enter, never save the password of course, always type in the address as you said, but when entering the password, what I quite often do is choose a point somewhere in the password where I'll start typing halfway through and then use the mouse, not the arrow keys, to go back to the beginning and put in the first part of the password.
Look, that's amazing.
That way, if I've got a keylogger, they'll get your password all back to front.
Yes.
Ah, okay.
That is amazing. That's top level. I don't know what it does that. That's impressive.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
High security.
And another thought for remembering, you know, maybe half a dozen or a dozen different passwords is divide your password up into, say, 3 blocks. First block is something that you might always put in there. Second part is something to do with that website. And the third part might be something to do with the date. So the Julian date of your birthday.
Yeah, fantastic.
Next year.
So-
And then
so the
you can
reason why
change
that's-
that by a little bit each time. So you just change the date on all of those each year.
Yep.
You can still use that same password, and then by doing the start typing in the middle or whatever.
Yes. Yeah,
Gives
that's
you
brilliant
multiple more
for a
layers
couple of
of
reasons.
security.
One, you're actually generating a good long password. So where people come undone is that they'll have something like ZoeDog123. It's very easy for a computer to guess that. Like we're talking sub 30 seconds for a computer to guess that. If you ever reuse a password, so say you've got one password for your bank and one password for email and one for Facebook and one for LinkedIn, I noticed you had on that list there. When LinkedIn got compromised a couple of years ago, that password is now associated with your email address everywhere. So everyone knows that you use that password with that email address, and they'll try that on your Gmail, they'll try that on your internet banking. So the second point there is to use separate passwords for everything. And what this esteemed gentleman has identified, you don't have to recreate the world in terms of password, just a small modifier. So as in John's favourite password, STG, as in Sir George. And that's a different enough password that no one will ever try that again. Does that make sense? Yet you've not had to remember 600 different passwords.
And, you know, uppercase, lowercase, numbers.
Yeah.
Characters.
Yeah, flawless.
And it, you know, the first part could be something like, in the beginning God created light, you just use the first letter in each of those. With,
Absolutely.
with the G being uppercase and the rest being lowercase. And
It's worth just touching on another dot point there. You said, so at the beginning you said, as long as you've got good antivirus and firewalls and everything, it's worth identifying that they are technical solutions for a behavioural problem. So all of the threats we've talked about tonight are actually not computer threats. These are human social engineering threats. So that's why, yes, all the antivirus, all that stuff, that's great, and that's a free baseline that everyone should have. But just be mindful, everything we deal with here is dealing with the human factor that sits on top of the technology. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes, Brian?
Russell said, there is an application called Mail Washer, MAILWASHER, and it enables you to read your emails and see the emails that are coming through before Outlook opens to send you those emails. If you go onto the professional application of Mail Washer and you don't like this email that's just come to you, you can bounce it back. I say bounce it back, so whilst they've sent it to you at your legitimate email address, you bounce it back and they get the impression that that email address does not exist. It's called Mail Washer.
Yeah, there's certainly some value to that. Yeah, so just as long as you're being mindful that you're not bouncing it from, that's all good. Yeah, perfect. But yes, filter it on the way in. That's good. Yep.
Lynn?
Okay, I've got 2 things to say.
Sure.
What firewalls would you recommend?
The last of it is if you're using an up-to-date Windows 10 or Mac OS, whatever the latest Mac OS is, it already has a perfect firewall and a perfect antivirus built in. So as long as you're not actively disabling those for any good reason, that's perfect and plenty.
Okay.
Yep.
Number 2, recently I was in Bangkok
Yes.
and I always use I always get money out by the ATM and my bank account actually reimbursed me total fees.
Okay.
So
So as in some fraud occurred when you use your key
No,
card?
there was no fraud occurred,
Okay.
but when you use an ATM that's not
Mhm.
from your card,
Yes.
it says we'll charge you $2 or
Sure.
blah, blah, my account reimbursed.
Your bank's very generous.
And
Yeah,
it also...
which bank is that?
Yeah, I'd like to know.
Which bank?
No, it's not bloody well that bad. And also didn't charge me any fees
Yeah,
for
fantastic.
The transaction.
transactions or anything like that.
Just,
Do you want to know what it is? ING, orange account.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because ING's, or international bank, as you probably know,
Yes.
they'd have operations in Thailand, I guess, and it may be against the law for that bank to charge a fee of something
I
like
don't know,
that.
but...
It's something local, I reckon.
But, no, it might be, but, yeah.
Yeah, anyway, you didn't get a fee, you got a refund of fee, yeah.
I got a refund, and it was itemised as well.
Yeah, but yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if I've come across that
That's an
one.
interesting one, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So this is sort of because you're all of the travelling
It's all
age.
internet banking, actually. It's internet banking, ING's internet banking. But overseas, if you, for instance, I've in the past used my St George card,
Yes.
but I've always been charged fees, which I've known that.
Yes.
That's ING.
Fantastic. There's an interesting sort of thing to be mindful of, and it's brilliant that we're back on this screenshot as well. When you're travelling anywhere, internationally, or even using any secured or unsecured wireless, so if you go to a McDonald's or you go to a bank, even a top chain restaurant, top chain hotels, if there is someone on that network that's essentially intercepting the traffic, this padlock won't work. So that's sort of another thing to ensure that no one's intercepting the traffic, because a lot of free Wi-Fi isn't quite so free because they're skimming your stuff.
But it will say that, won't it?
The Wi-Fi signal sort of thing enough, the fact that it's secure is not a consideration to whether or not you're communicating securely with your intended institution. Does that make sense? So the wireless having a key on it that the reception desk gives you is by no means security. Yep. It's security to the wireless, but the bit between the wireless and the rest of the internet could very well be compromised. Yep.
You mean, are they mining your information?
That's right. So
What you're buying, what you're selling?
there's a man in the middle, so if you are the wireless access point, your guests are communicating through you. Without that padlock, you could be intercepting all of their credit card numbers, everything.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so it's well worth paying attention to that. So that padlock is the best thing to go by.
Yep.
Padlock and identifying the name.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if this said Hyatt Hotel Mumbai, but you were at the PayPal site, the padlock is of no relevance. So it needs to represent the entity you're trying to communicate with.
Yeah, well, I think that's some very interesting points.
Yeah.
So I think, make us more aware anyway of what the potential problems could be, and we don't want to have any dramas with losing your money or going to the wrong person. So I'll go on to the next topic now, which I'll just need to flick across. Yeah, thanks, Graham.
Not at all.
So Graham's our computer guy. Obviously knows very well how to keep it all under control. But now we're going to look at the change in technology in our jobs situation, and we're looking at artificial intelligence in the longer term, but also the context of the change in jobs over the last, roughly 200 years. As we all know, that in the last 200 years we've gone from a feudal society to an industrial society, massive change in Europe and America and even Australia, where lots of people used to work in farms and lived and worked on farms, and now most people live in urban areas. In fact, Australia is one of the most urbanised countries in the world. Even though we've got a lot of country, a lot of land, most people live in cities, and most people live in cities on the coast. But anyway, let's talk about technology and how it's changed over time. If you go before the Industrial Revolution, most things were made by craftspeople. They were either in villages or in their homes. They made clothing, they made shoes, they made all the things that people could buy, but they didn't have to sell them because they made them for themselves. And that meant that the craftsmen were really couple of issues. One, they had to learn a craft. There were guilds in those times. They were originally the guilds that now have become into craft unions, trade unions. But the main thing was that we had the industrialisation process where people went into factories, and the factories didn't need skilled people. They didn't need as many skills, and people came from the country basically to fill those jobs. So it was clothing, textiles, footwear, metal working. A lot of these factories were putting a lot of people who had no skills in these industries into working, and it produced a lot of goods quicker, faster, and much more quality. So the Industrial Revolution, as we know it, is really what we see today. Is we don't see a lot of people working in farms. We don't see, and we'll show in a minute, but even a lot of people now don't even need to work in factories because the machines are so good. But but one of those problems, of course, is that people lost their jobs, and this is an example of what happens when people lose their jobs. They're not happy, and if they're French people, they're not even more unhappy. So this is an example of what happened when the first sewing machine manufacturer started to produce the uniforms for the French army. Being French, they got excited and they burnt his factory down. So giving an example of what happens when change is hurting people's livelihoods, people are not going to be happy. British had their own situation. People lost their jobs in the textiles and footwear industries through the automated looms and knitting frames. People, had spent years learning these crafts and then became unemployed. And the one example of that is called the Todd Puddle Martyrs, which they were a society trying to resist that change. Unfortunately, they got an assisted passage to Australia as a result, but they obviously might have found employment out here. But the key thing is, people in many of the industrial societies tried to resist the change, and there were Luddites as well, which was another group of people trying to destroy the machinery. But they ended up with, we got cheaper goods and clothes, but there were more unskilled jobs. But the whole economy got better, in the sense that people had more clothes, moved more food, started to travel on railways for holidays, travel on on steamships around the world. And one of the things that Australia benefited from was that we had a very small population up to around 1850 until the gold rush. And it was only because we had the gold rush and the fact that you could bring lots of people out on steamships and sailing ships that really Australia got going. But the main thing is that manufactured goods really only came about by the fact that we had this industrialisation. But now we've got a lot more areas where we're losing jobs. Now, the one example here is the checkouts. If you go to a Woolworths or Coles now, there's less and less people who do the checkouts and more self-serve. Less people in banks because you've got automatic machines. You do now use your credit card for a lot of things. You don't need cash for a lot of things. Apparently ATM machines have had a 10% decline in withdrawals now because people don't need to use their use cash as much. You go pay your parking, you swipe your card. You go and get a coffee, you swipe your card, and that's efficiency for the bank because they don't have to dole out load up the machines and receive the money back eventually because the retailer's taking that money back to the bank. It's a very efficient way of doing it. It makes the whole economy more efficient. You don't have to get your wait for the baggage attendant to put your bags on the planes. So efficiency is coming in there in the airline industry. And a new one that's just hasn't come to Australia yet, but Amazon now got a situation where there's no people in the shops. So you go to the shop and you scan your app, which is an Amazon app, with your mobile phone. You walk in, scan it on there so they know you're in there.
Oh.
And then you go around and you get your things from the shop, and they must be able to tell somehow what you're buying because you just walk straight out. You don't pay. You don't pay. It's automatic payment. So I don't know how they do it. The barcodes, obviously, they've obviously got, everything's got a barcode on them, so they must be able to scan every time you pull something out of a shelf. They may be scanning that process because it's very hard. If you had a shopping trolley full of things, it's going to be hard for them to, in one hit, pick all those things up. So it must be an individual process of picking up which item you've put into your shopping trolley. And I suppose there's got to be some system where if you put it back into the shelf, they give you a refund. But anyway, I'm sure they're working all on that out. But anyway, that's potentially where shops have no people in. So, bit of a few years away maybe, but maybe not. But what's happening is that all these shopping centres now are not selling as many goods as they used to. You know, people now go on the internet to buy things that they used to go down to the shops. And therefore, are major shopping centres going to be redundant? If you're not selling goods through them, if you're just getting them through the Australia Post or through FedEx, do they become redundant? Well, no, because now we're selling services. So when you go around around Westfield or any major shopping centres, you see all these things now. Travel, massages, beauticians, healthcare, gymnasiums. They're selling services and not selling physical goods. So you can't get them over the internet. So apparently now 30% of the major shopping centres are now selling services, not physical goods. And even when they are selling physical goods, there's a thing called a click and brick. Do you know? Anyone know what that is? It's where you go on the internet and order it, and you pick it up at the shop. So the click is obviously click for sale. The brick is you still pick it up at the shop, and then you don't have to wait for be at home to pick up your items. Yeah, yes, Helen.
Russell, there is one. It is a service, but it relates back to the olden days, and that's the seamstresses or do the alterations.
Oh, yeah.
The hem, you know, so
Clothing alterations.
Clothing alterations,
Yeah.
and there are a few there. And that, I mean, I know it's a service, but that's one thing that, I mean, you used to do that yourself at home.
But now we
do that now, so you take it.
outsource it. So you should have put that on the list there. Yeah, that's right. So that's another service that would be in shopping centres, or more commonly in shopping centres now.
But it's still an old-fashioned thing.
It's an old-fashioned industry. Yeah, that's right. So the main issue is that if you're getting things through the internet, it's actually cheaper than obviously going through a shop. Obviously, if you bring the goods into the shop, you've got to unpack the things in the shop, have them displayed. There's obviously a percentage of theft in shops. There's damage in shops. There's a certain amount of, then you've got to have a staff in the shop to record them to go out and get them paid. So there's quite a lot of costs in shops. So if you cut that link in your process of buying things, it obviously is going to be making it much cheaper. And that's where Amazon is now. They've just started to employ 500 people down in Sydney for their big warehouse as full-time employees rather than part-time employees. So 500 people is not going to replace all of other people that have lost jobs in the shopping centres, but ultimately those people in shops now may be in some other industry. They might be doing the travel, or they may be doing healthcare, or they may be doing work in the gymnasium. So people can change jobs, obviously, into other areas, depending on their skills and whether they're trained. But the key thing is it makes the whole economy more efficient. It's going to be more efficient to have an economy where you order things over the internet in general than if you're getting it through a shop. And that's where Woolworths and Coles are going to be under pressure, because physically, you know, the things like your groceries you might not get through the internet, but things like going to Kmart or Target, you may not go there as much. So that sort of end of the retailing may disappear. Certainly David Jones and Myers are in big trouble because people can go in, try their dresses on, try their clothes on, then go home on the internet and then buy on the internet. So that's, pretty much the department stores are an industry that's probably will disappear eventually. They'll probably find that Myer and David Jones will combine, and then after that it'll just be maybe in just big city centres. But the thing is, there's still need humans because we can provide judgment, emotional skills, empathy, care, so healthcare and all sorts of areas like that, imagination and creativity. So we're not going to be out of a job completely, but the area is, the big area that nobody, or it's just starting to come in, is that artificial intelligence. That's now being applied into the workplace. And that's where, it's not you, most of the people here, because you're not working, but it's your children who will potentially have a huge impact from this on their employment. Because there's lots of jobs to go in the tertiary sector, where artificial intelligence will come in. So giving an example, this is the first example of this was Deep Blue with the IBM computing system, which was able to beat the world champion Kasparov in the 5 games, and after 5 games he gave up because he knew that he couldn't beat the computer. Another system was developed called DeepMind, a neural network which plays video games in a fashion similar to the humans, and it's designed to access external memory like a conventional Turing machine. I'll come back to that. Resulting in a computer that mimics the short-term memory of the human brain. So it's not going to take over the world, and no computers are going to take over the world, but they're getting into this area where they can actually mimic human intelligence. A Turing machine, anyone know Alan Turing? Enigma? Yep. That's why they're talking Turing machine, the first computer, effectively. He was a mathematician, cryptologist in the Second World War, did the Enigma machine. So, yeah, so there's these examples of these. AlphaZero is a computer programmer, computer program or algorithmic designed master go chess, and can go and do chess and shogi. All they're doing is giving the computer the rules of the game, and by trial and error it learns. So you technically could have a computer that learns with every different move, learns a range of options. Now it could take millions of different options to learn how to play chess. What they're doing is just giving them the rules. And then those rules are then programming itself. That's the big difference. So effectively 2 different ways. You can have it programmed to only move in a certain way at each point, or then you have the computer work out how it's going to move by giving the rules for the system. So it's thinking about which is the best way. So within 24 hours, it achieved a superhuman level of play and it was able to defeat world champions. So it's learned within 24 hours using the rules and repetition. That's the only thing. It has to repeat and repeat when it's going to win, when it's not going to win, and that goes back into its memory. So repetition, a bit like the Enigma machine where they kept going through all the different codes until they found the code that worked. But this is doing it a million times faster. So artificial intelligence going to help in potentially drug science, because they can then run through a whole range of different drugs and see what combinations of chemicals and pharmaceuticals work. And that will hopefully speed up the process of development of drugs, because it basically takes $1 billion to get a drug on the shelf these days, and 5 or 10 years of research at least to come up with something that's going to be approved by the TGA here in Australia or the FDA in America. So, but there's some industries that are going to be obviously either made obsolescent or have declines, but there's going to be a lot of industries that are going to grow. Now this is going to be basically in healthcare. Mainly we're looking at things like aged care, because we've got the baby boom generation coming through. Construction, where you have to need new infrastructure, new housing, new commercial buildings to house these things in. Education and training. If we're going to be retraining our workforce, we need more teachers and we need more people to be able to get people back in the workforce. And anyone in the professional, scientific, technological areas. So some areas will contract, some areas will expand, just like it has in the last 200 years. But there's still going to be a lot of demand for employment in service roles. That's really where it's going to be. Not in manufacturing, not in agriculture. So like the most jobs, so the jobs that are going to be automating more in, most unlikely is in communication, management, have good emotional intelligence, creativity, and negotiation skills. So that's human-to-human skills. Things like nursing, architecture, teaching, psychologist, marketing. So there will be a lot of those areas where they need either good emotional intelligence, creativity, able to manage others, communication skills, and negotiation skills. So there's the aged care and disability areas, nursing, child caring, education aid, software, and even waiters, because we're going to be consuming more services. And some of those services are going to be food, entertainment, travel. They're going to be some of the areas we're going to consume. So this is an example of a projection of the next 5 years where they're going to be the jobs. A quarter roughly in healthcare and social assistance, scientific jobs, 12% construction, education, public administration. Retailing is still going to grow, but it's going to grow in a different area. Transport, warehousing, for instance, the big Amazon warehouse down in Melbourne and Sydney. And so there's going to be a lot of growth in jobs. So our children are not going to be unemployed, it's just going to be in different industries. So there's certain sectors of the economy which will keep growing, and you can see these: education, finance, management, healthcare again, community services. So they expect another 4 million jobs in the next 5 years. So it's still a lot of people to be employed. And half of those jobs will be due to the baby boomers, us, because we'll be asking for more services. So what are they? We're going to restaurants more. So we eat out more. Looking more entertainment because we've got more time. Might be downsizing a house. So instead of, we're needing a real estate agent, you need removalists, you need maybe different furniture. So just by moving house, you're creating employment. If you're not able to do the gardening anymore or do house cleaning, that's another whole industry that's potentially going to be expanding. Medical services, obviously, and aged care. So there's quite a few of these jobs are really dependent upon the baby boom generation. So that there's some areas that are going to be automated, like the driving. It's going to be a long way before we get to automated cars, apparently, but semi-automated cars where you still get in the car and set where you want to go, but you sit in the driver's seat. And you can intervene at any time. You can do that with a Tesla now. I was talking to a guy last year, and he lives in Bowral, drives to Sydney, gets in his car, puts it on automatic, drives down the highway, he's working on his computer. All the way. All he has to do is every half hour he's got to push the button to say he's alive. It's like, he's got to reset it, otherwise it'll stop and pull off the side of the road. So that's it now. So?
Is that legal?
Probably not. I don't know, but it's probably not. No.
I doubt it, yeah.
But he's still in the driver's seat. That's it. But he's got his laptop in front of him. So there you go. So there's certain industries that will be contracting. Financial analysis, computers can do things like analysis. Construction workers, machines being able to do buildings when in the past they were just physical jobs. Even pharmacists, potentially you could go into a pharmacist where you bring your prescription and it reads the barcode, and then it will potentially push out the medication that you're prescribed. You don't need a pharmacist to do that. Well, they're saying that, you know, $350,000 times you did get the wrong one over. This is a study, but anyway, I don't think perhaps that's over quite a big survey, but anyway. Even lawyers, finding documents can be much easier now by putting in programs to pick up the documents they want.
What about financial advisors?
They need emotional intelligence. So we're okay. Even astronauts, you know, cost of putting an astronaut into the atmosphere is so costly because they've got to have food, water, all those things. So taking out the cost of an astronaut would save a lot of money in putting people into space.
I suppose one of the questions is, what do you do with all the people who are unskilled?
That's the issue of retraining, yeah. That's right. But
Yeah, but retraining, they haven't been trained in anything.
yeah, well, that's the issue. Yeah, and that's why, obviously,
There's no labouring jobs anymore.
no, that's
Cleaning
right.
jobs anymore.
Yeah, that's right. The low end will suffer more.
They'll turn into footballers.
Footballers, the Masters games. So the key thing is we've had rapid change in lots of industries in the last even 50 years or 20 years. I mean, when I first had a car, I had a record player, sorry, a tape player in it, and now we've got down to where you just put in your USB and have your streaming through the ports in the car. So just in the last 20, 30 years, we've had major changes in technology just on music. But now we can get that music much easier, you've got a lot more choice, it's cheaper with Spotify. I think it's only $10 a month or something. You don't need all your record collection and your CD collection and DVD collection, and let alone tapes. So it's easier. And obviously certain industries have literally disappeared, like the DVD, which was the fashion 20 years ago. And now of course Netflix, you can get it cheaper, instant access. When the NBN comes in, you can be able to download movies within a few seconds on the NBN. And so even with the 5G network, they're working on that as well. So that when you get the 5G phones, you'll be able to put down a whole movie within a couple of seconds. So a few industries that you wouldn't want to be in, like underwater explorers, not a good job for your health with the bends, or deep sea exploration or disaster response. So I was talking to a person who was in the bomb squad in Canberra here, and I said, you know, there's a bit of risky occupation, the bomb squad, you know. He said, well, we all do it with robots now, and a drone. They can see if whatever suspicious package it was, they can just do that. So that they're not really being involved very directly in it. There's robotic welding, we can do that. That's not many jobs in it, but there's obviously an area where we can improve on. But this one's example of where what you think is a fairly difficult job to automate. There's a machine here putting the bricks on, putting the concrete on, laying the bricks in a nice orderly fashion. And apparently the guy who's the professional guy over here would take twice as long as it would to do on the machine. But you've still got to have a machine. You've still got to have somebody to set the machine up, put the foundations, put the concrete in, service the machine. So
Be there while it's happening.
have you? You've seen it?
And to be there.
Ah, yeah. And to be there, that's right, make sure that nothing goes wrong. But this is coming back to your point about education. This is sort of showing where the people who are losing out on this change, people who've got very low education. So going through all the different countries, Australia, Belgium, you can see here the losses of jobs. I'm not sure, this might be roughly 10% of the workforce or 20%, I'm not sure what that really refers to, but just to see that there's the people who are going to be suffering are people who don't have education. The people who are getting more jobs are with the tertiary sector primarily. Interesting with Germany, you see here there's not many people have lost jobs in the lower end, and they haven't increased many jobs in the tertiary end, but I don't know why that's the case. But Australia, expanding the tertiary jobs, expanding people in upper secondary, but not tertiary jobs. So you can see a pretty consistent line there. So it's basically for our children and our grandchildren, it's getting them to get a good education. It's really going to be the message. And this shows you over the last 100 years what's happened. Agriculture's gone down to about 3%, I think 3% of the workforce work in agriculture. It used to be around 30%. You know, people used to have to physically, when they brought in the grain for wheat and oats, they had to cut the grain, the wheat first, then put it through a threshing machine, and then take it to the silo in a bag. And now you have, it's all automated. So all these little country towns where people used to live, and used to be the farm workers who used to be doing shearing, they used to be doing hay carting, used to be doing all the extra jobs in the farms, and now automated, and the farms don't need them. So the little that's why the small country towns have died. They don't need them. They have moved to the city with better jobs and less, well, farming is hard, so they're physically not doing the physical jobs. Even manufacturing's contracted, so that's the manufacturing there, can now lessen, it's probably about 10% of the workforce in manufacturing. Now, of course, we've moved a lot of manufacturing to China, which is cheaper and means that people are released from those jobs. Construction is actually increasing a bit, but the big area is services.
Russell, I think manufacturing doesn't seem to have shrunk as much as I would have thought.
It's still, yeah, but you look at up here, oh sorry, go back. If you look back up here, we had about, that's a bit over 40, and that was, say, 15. So there's probably shrunk by half, I'd say, if you take it from that line here. So 1940,
yeah, okay.
Yeah, during the 1940s there was a huge expansion in manufacturing. So we had a whole aircraft industry.
Yeah.
There was a huge manufacturing explosion during the Second World War, and that's why it contracted from that point in time. Well, couldn't get things from Britain basically. Some things came from America, but they had to come by shipment. We really had a big expansion in the manufacturing industry.
So many years ago, I heard Bob Gottliebson make a point, and I'm talking about the early 1980s. He said, there's not much profit to be made out of manufacturing. It's all to be made out of owning the brands that are manufactured.
Yes, okay, the actual intellectual capital.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm just giving you an example here of, if you know, go back to the days when there used to be only tellers in a branch, and let's assume you had 10 tellers in a branch. And what happens now is most people don't go to a bank, and if they need cash, they go to the ATM. But just think about just the ATMs for a second. They could potentially put 9 out of 10 bankers out of a job. So what happens? One of them still stays in the bank there's still people who do telling, so you only need maybe one person for that. Then you may need one person to service the machine, so they come up and you see them like MSS or the security guards actually filling the machines up. So you still need somebody to do that, especially in open areas and shopping centres. 2 people may be needed to make the machines. And then there's probably...
In Japan.
What's that?
They're in Japan.
Yeah, but it still doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in total terms. It still means, what I'm getting to here, it doesn't matter because the people across the board around the world are wealthier. And if you've got wealth, you can then still have somebody in Japan and doing machines, and you still be better off because it's released 9 other people from a job that's low paid, because you can't pay people much just by handing. People over the counters are not very high valued. It's not a very high valued job. But the thing is that you've released 9 people to do something else. Now, even if they're overseas jobs, some of them are still in Australia. And what we're saying is those 6 people that may be left over who potentially are employed are going to go into some other industry. And they might be they go into some other service industry. They might go into leasing of cars. They might go, if they're in the banking industry, they could go into leasing cars, they could go into financial planning, they could go into investment advice or investment products. So they could go into, even in the finance industry, a whole range of new industries where they could add more value.
Yeah, but Russell, that's terribly oversimplified. I mean, you try getting a new job when you're age 50.
Oh, absolutely. That's right. There's going to be losers, as it was back in the Luddites, or you can go back to the to the top part of martyrs. There's always going to be losers in this change. The people who generally have always won out have been the people with a better education. In any decade, you can go back up 2 years. But unfortunately, that's the price we pay. Just going back to Mitsubishi in Adelaide, you know, they closed down the car plant there. A third of the people got a job, went back into other industries. So you might have worked in the payroll area of Mitsubishi, or you might have been in the accounting area, or you might have been an electrician at the Mitsubishi plants. Well, these people have got skills that can be transferred to industry, any industry. So a third went into other industries where they could apply their skills. They didn't have to retrain. A third had to retrain, and a third couldn't retrain, like the other example at the age 50, been working on their assembly line for 20 years, had no other skills. They didn't get a job. So yes, there's going to be 2/3 will probably get some other jobs, maybe not the same level, same wages, and a third are going to be potentially not getting a job at all. And that's the unfortunate thing about that. But that's where in the times when we had the restructuring the textiles, clothing and footwear industries in Australia under the Hawke Keating government, they brought in major retraining programs. And that's the key thing that was missing in America. When America's lost all of its manufacturing, they had no other program to retrain these people. These are the Trump's supporters who are saying, you know, I got put off at 40 or 45, still had debts and still had kids at school, and I couldn't get another job because I couldn't get retrained. In Europe and Europe and Australia, we had retraining programs to cover that, but not in America. It's a very much more laissez-faire society. If you fall to the bottom, nobody cares. And that's unfortunately where the Trump people are dissatisfied. They've got low jobs, and if they get a job, it's going to be very much low jobs. But yes, the basics of the story is, some jobs will contract, some will expand, but the major issue is that overall the economy's better off because you're getting people into higher value jobs and they can be paid more. If you want to be paid more, you've got to have more skills, and that's basically what's always been the case. That's why we have to really get a third of the population now goes to university. When I went to university, it was 5% of the population, and in the 1950s, it was about 1 or 2% of the population. 2%, yeah. One of the 2%. But yeah, I mean, the expansion of the university systems was not because we wanted to get it was because we needed them in the education workforce. You know, it's not just because we wanted to get them to university. So in a day, as technology is superseded, it enhances competition because it means things are made cheaper and then competition becomes more intense, and you get better products and cheaper products in relative terms. And so you're getting better, so the new jobs are at a higher level, so they're more demanding, but also they're less boring. They're often less dangerous, and they're less monotonous as well. You know, you can replicate the monotonous jobs much easier than the technical jobs. So the challenge is that we've got to get our education institutions to meet that. We've done that over the last 40 years, ever since Gough Whitlam brought in the free education in the universities in the early 70s. That was in my era, and as I said, 30% now of people go to university from schools, and we've had a major contraction in industries like your agriculture, manufacturing, but they were generally jobs which are hard, boring and monotonous. So they're not jobs that you really want to drive a tractor around a circle for 10 hours a day. It's not going to excite you too much. So overall, workers and buyers should be excited about the changes because eventually it's going to be a better society for all of us. And this is an example, I was just using this as an example, I saw the example of robots being used in aged care now because that can be one way of getting costs down and still having good services. So that's potentially robots coming in to do your vacuuming on your house. You can do that already. Get rid of one boring job. and not have to worry about it.
Mowing the lawns.
Maybe that's the next one, yeah. So thanks for coming. So hopefully you got something out of that. It was a topics being thought up by our new guy Luke over here, so came up with some good topics for us and helped in putting all together. She's hiding at the back there. Okay, well thanks for coming in, and we'll have another seminar on the budget after the budget's brought forward this year to April. So we can have a lecture in May.